Hello and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, inspirational author, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. Find out more at rachelflick.com. Here now is your host, Rachael Flick.
Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Last week, I'm so glad that you joined me to hear me tell a little bit of my love story with Micah and just be able to process some of the grief that I've experienced through the holidays, and hopefully that blessed you. And if you haven't heard it yet, go back and listen because it was really sweet. And I loved the opportunity to talk with Mike about the things that were on my heart in the season and just bring forward some of the ways that Micah was a hero in everyday life. And so today I am bringing you an amazing, amazing, amazing woman named Michele Cushatt. Michele is a mom and a wife. She has a blended family. She is an author. She is a speaker. She is a podcaster. She is an amazing leader. She's a cancer survivor. And literally, she could talk through this entire time and richly bless all of us without even pausing. And so I am looking forward to getting into her story. Hi, Michele. Thank you for being here today.
Hi there, Rachel. I'm so glad to see you. It's been too long since we've been in person.
Oh, no.
So this is going to be a temporary fix for me until we can resolve that someday soon, I hope.
Okay. So you said you have 6 kids. Tell us a little bit about your family.
All right. So my 6 kids are, wait till you hear their ages. In fact, they're now at the ages that I keep getting their ages mixed up. I don't know if that's my age or just the volume of children I have, but 6 kids, ages 28, 27, 23, 14, 13, 13.
14, 13, 13. And I have twins. So whenever I hear the same number, I always wonder twins. But is that twins or blended family ages?
It's twins. They're twins. And the 14-year-old's only 9 months older. So they're all siblings. So 3 months out of the year, they're the same age. And I'd just like to pause and have everybody take a moment of silence for me because in March, okay, remember when COVID all happened? Everything happened around March 11th, 12th. That's when the country started to shut down. Well, my twins turned 13 on March 15th. So it's 4 days later, right? After everything shut down. So this is when COVID was first hitting. And literally 4 days later, I had 3 13-year-olds in my house. 13, 13, 13. So I told everybody, I said, while y'all are mourning COVID, I just need you to know that I'm doing it with 3 13-year-olds. So y'all need to feel sorry for me.
There's no excuse for us. If Michele can live through 3 13-year-olds, and I feel like we had when did we have a super moon and 2 full moons and a moon on a Black Friday, on a Friday? Yes. Was that the same month? Because that,
probably. I'm certain it was, because if I had 3 13-year-olds, anything was possible.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's going to be so many things that you could say about survival. But I also want to hear you tell the listeners a little bit, which is, I know that this is such a loaded question, but I would love to hear you tell people if you were going to water ski or give the cliff notes of the key points in your story that we're going to talk through about why you are an incredible model for resilience and hope and how your story encourages others to persevere. Take us back a little bit.
All right. I'll give you the water ski version, as you said. I love that kind of metaphor there. And it's going to be fast. So I want to warn those of you who are listening. I'm going to give you some bullets of the timeline of my life. And some of them are really heavy and really significant. And I'm not glossing over them, but I'm going to give you the bullets so you have a full picture and the context, and then we'll dig deeper into each of those in just a little bit. So when I was 21 years old, I met a man that I was at Christian college. My goal was to go to a Christian college, then get a nursing degree, and my hope was to do full-time ministry and maybe even mission work as a nurse. I met a man at Christian college who was also a believer and wanted to be a pastor. And so at the age of 21, I got married and became a pastor's wife. To me, this was a culmination of a life of faith. My parents became Christians when I was about 6 months old. And so even though faith was new to my parents, I'd never known life without Jesus in it. Belief in God, confidence in the love and presence of God, and the reality of Jesus as a Savior had always been part of my story. And so to me, I couldn't imagine anything better than marrying a godly man, having a godly family, and doing ministry full time. In fact, I really believe that I was called to full-time ministry. And so at 21, there I was. Now, what's funny is, in hindsight, I thought I was so old. 21 was so old. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, it was just the beginning, baby. Well, lots of things happened. Again, long story. By the time I was 27, it was 6 days before Christmas, I watched my pastor husband drive away for the last time. I had a 1.5-year-old baby on my hip and he was gone. And I instantly became a single mom, former pastor's wife. For the next couple of years, I was a single mom, had to reinvent myself, had to learn how to do a sales job, a 10-hour-a-day job, and be a single mom, support a family. And all of my dreams of ministry, I thought, were completely done, because how could God use a divorced woman, right?
Scarlet D. Yep.
Exactly, the Scarlet D. Then I met this man at church who also had found himself unexpectedly divorced with 2 boys. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to combine our families? That will be easy. And so, wouldn't it be fun? I mean, just come. It can't be hard, right? We all just want to be a family. It certainly will be easy. I hope you all hear my sarcasm. So we became a blended family, got married. When we got married, our boys, 3 boys, were 4, 7, and 9. And 4, 7, and 9, I became an instant mom to 3 boys, not just 1. And the day after our wedding, we literally came home to a kitchen table where we had to do homework with 3 boys, grade school homework. And we dove right into step family. And what I didn't realize and had to learn the hard way is that you cannot bring 5 people who have the wounds of a broken family into a family and expect them not to hurt each other.
Wow.
So that began the adventure of remarriage and step family, which is it's just a loaded bag. It's hard. It's complicated. There's so many different dynamics. There's so many wounds. So we did that about the time we thought that we had we never mastered it. About the time we thought we had turned the corner on the difficulty of step family, our boys became teenagers. So then we started navigating adolescence, which was its own complication.
I'm afraid I'm going to save your number. I'm going to call you later.
I don't know that I know anything to help you, but I did survive the first time. And about the time we thought, okay, we can do this, our boys start graduating from high school, we can do this. It was 2014, and on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I got a phone call from a doctor. I had an ulcer in my mouth that would not heal on the side of my tongue. Was told a half dozen times it was nothing, no big deal. And I found out that Tuesday before Thanksgiving that they were wrong, and that it was, in fact, cancer of the tongue, squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue. I was 39 years old, mom of the 3 boys, and found out I had cancer. And it's the kind of cancer that's usually for older men who smoke and drink. And I was none of those things.
39, you said?
39 years old, yeah. So that was that diagnosis. That we'll unpack that a little bit more later, but it was earth-shattering. It was rocking to me. I mean, utterly. You just, you sit there and it's one thing to say you have faith and you're confident in eternity. It's another thing to actually face your eternity and wonder if you're going to live. And that's not easy for a 39-year-old mama who, was still in that place of thinking she had another 40, 50 years to go. About the time that we thought we had tackled that crisis, about 8 months later, we got another phone call. This time it was from a relative who told us about 3 kids who had a mom who had a history of addiction. And the question was asked of us, will you take them? Well, at this point, we had survived divorce, step family, adolescence, and cancer. And now we were being asked if we would be willing to take in twin 4-year-olds and a 5-year-old. And remember, too, at this time, this was the week before my 40th birthday. I was still fairly young, right? So that's a lot of life in a fairly short amount of time. But we prayed about it, thought about it, and 24 hours later, we drove to another state and picked up three kids, two 4-year-olds and a 5-year-old. We brought them home and started parenting all over again. However, and we'll dig into this too, I had no understanding of the significant impact of early childhood abuse and neglect on the development and growth of children. And what we didn't know was coming is some very difficult parenting, some very difficult years. And so for the next several years, that was our challenge, our struggle, is that learning how to parent kids that came from these really, really hard places, experiencing stories that you would not even imagine, right, in the first 4 or 5 years of their life. And about the time we thought we got a handle on that with the kids, we thought maybe we could do this. It was about 3 years into it is when I got another phone call from another doctor letting me know that they thought they had got all the cancer, but they were wrong. The cancer was back for a second time. And this time it was more severe, more advanced, had to have another surgery. This time they needed to remove a third of my tongue in order to remove the cancer, had to put a graft in there to try to rebuild it, required about 8 weeks of therapy and recovery to learn how to eat and drink and talk again. But once again, they said they got it all. So I thought it was over. About the time we thought we got a handle on that, my dad called me. In fact, it was 8 weeks exactly after my surgery. My dad called me, and he had been diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. Gave him very little time to live. He ended up being with us for 3 more months. In August of that year, he passed away from pancreatic cancer, barely 70 years old, so still a young guy. And then 10 weeks after I buried my dad, the doctor called for a third time, and my cancer had come back for a third time. This time, they gave me 2 weeks to get my affairs in order. Basically said, we can't make you any guarantee of a cure or a long life. Get your affairs in order. And then they did a 9-hour surgery where they removed 2/3 of my tongue. Cut me open from wrist to elbow to take out tissue and stuff to rebuild my tongue, took out multiple lymph nodes in my neck, my submandibular gland, another skin graft for my leg. I had a tracheostomy for 2 months and a feeding tube for almost 6 months, and external radiation chemo. Basically, when you start shooting radiation at the face and the neck, it causes lots of problems. So I ended up with burns and all kinds of issues, and literally had to, well, the way the doctors said it is, we took you to the brink of death in the hopes of maybe saving your life. Wow. And so it took, for the years since then, it's been 5 years now, I've just been a slow slog trying to come back to life. And then we hit 2020 when COVID happened, and 3 13-year-olds and ongoing challenges and other things going on. I just, honestly, truly, for the last 25 years, it's been one thing after another. And again, like I said, I only gave you the big high-level things. There's multiple other things in there that have happened too that were hard in and of themselves. So.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for water skiing over that, because
it was a long water ski, wasn't it?
Reasonably so. I heard you say that you experienced divorce, you experienced disappointment, and I would imagine probably some questions with faith and wanting to always be a pastor's wife and in ministry, and this culmination of this sweetness. I love hearing that you pointed to that with your relationship with Jesus, even as a little girl, being conscious of his presence, abandoned by your husband, being a single mom, which I currently can attest to is very, very hard. And then remarriage, blended family, step family, your first cancer diagnosis. So what I would say after second and third would absolutely be a form of chronic illness, right? Where you're just, on that treadmill and all of the treatments, and then adoption with kids that are, that have experienced trauma and abuse, and losing your father. And so I just want to say, everybody, just in case you were wondering if Michele could relate to you,
yeah,
there's some piece of her story somewhere today that's going to touch your heart and speak to you. So the thing that I just get immediately, Michele, is just that's the name of your book, which totally makes sense, but relentless, that it just, I wonder if it felt like the hits just kept coming. And how do you continue to handle that feeling of, is it safe to take a breath? Is this is this wave going to suck me under? Just that ongoing nature of so many hardships.
Yes, definitely. I tend to be a pretty tenacious, determined person. I think that's just been part of my personality from a young age.
You absolutely have to be. That's incredible.
But that said, so I'm pretty tenacious, pretty stubborn, determined, whatever kind of descriptor you want to use, it would probably fit. So there is a part of me that has that as part of my personality. At the same time, the cumulative, consecutive, unrelenting griefs and losses and sufferings eventually took their toll. Mm-hmm. And in this last bout, the last round of cancer and all the things that happened, I finally hit a place where I had no fight left. Mm-hmm. I think it's important for me to say that because I know there's somebody who's listening right now that feels like I don't have any fight. I don't have any more resilience. I don't have anything left to give. And some people would say, well, just dig deep and find it. Well, yes, but no. Sometimes we reach a place where we really have nothing left to give. Mm-hmm. We reach the end of ourselves, right? And that place can be different for different ones of us. Well, I finally hit that place where I realized I didn't have it in me to get up and go anymore. And that is what ended up informing the name of my book. The circumstances were relentless, right? They were absolutely relentless. Some people thought I named it that because they thought I was relentless. I said, no, that's what I discovered is that I do have a stopping point. I do have a limit. Circumstances were relentless. And I couldn't fight anymore and push on anymore. But God's presence was even more relentless still. I had a podcast interview that asked me one time after sharing my story. She said, so basically you're telling me that you fought your way back to faith. And I said, no. No, I didn't. I said, I had no fight left. He came and got me and he brought me back to himself.
I love that.
It's so important because so many times as people of faith, we feel like all of the pressure is on us to perform, to step up and achieve and to try to be good enough and try to prove our worthiness enough. But there comes a point in time for all of us where we realize that we really reach the end of ourselves, that we realize that there's a gap between our best efforts and the experience of God's presence. And what we have to understand is we are not the ones that can bridge that gap. God's the only one that can do it. And he did.
Yeah, I kind of see grace and mercy as two sides of the same coin. And what I'm hearing you say is actually really comforting for me because I have experienced that place where I've reached the end of myself and been in a hole that I couldn't dig out of, pull up from, see the top of, to be honest. And what you just said feels so hopeful because God is more relentless than our circumstances.
And it's not up to us. I think that's so critical because I'm sure there are those of you who are listening now that just sit there and go, well, I'm not as strong as they are. I don't have the same strength, or I don't have, guess what? It had nothing to do with us. I was literally at the end. In fact, I write about this in Relentless, where I didn't want to live anymore. I couldn't bear the thought of waking up and doing life another day. It was too much. There was too much pain. I didn't mention this before, but I live with chronic pain because of all that's been cut out of my mouth. So imagine when you get a canker sore and how miserable you are. My whole mouth hurts every day, all day. And, we swallow and we chew and we talk and we do all these things that are painful for me. And I hit that place where I don't want to live that way anymore. I didn't want to deal with that, not to mention the fact that I couldn't figure out this God who would let all of these things happen and not step in and protect me from it. And so I really did reach the end of myself. And somehow, by some miracle, God just came and got me slowly over years. And it took time. And we can talk about some of that too. But he just kept showing the fact that he goes, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. In fact, you don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove yourself worthy of it. I'm here because I love you. That's it.
Yeah. That he's so faithful. I think the problem of pain is a big thing that really, when people are deconstructing from the faith, they're making these public declarations that they no longer align with the Christian faith. I really believe it's what you're talking about. The problem of like, is God who he says he is? Would a God who was good allow these things to happen to me, And
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to go into that a little bit?
We certainly can, because I've certainly spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's just a hard question, right? So I'm trying to understand a God that would allow pain to exist, why he wouldn't alleviate it, why he wouldn't alleviate suffering. And I don't necessarily have any great clear answers on that. I don't know that we will ever, as humans, get a satisfying answer to that question, because pain does exist. A couple things I've had to wrestle with, though, is that there is something even worse than pain, right? Pain is an important informer. It lets us know that something's wrong and something needs to be addressed. When we ignore pain, that's when the real damage happens, right? And so pain in and of itself, suffering in and of itself, serves a purpose. And to constantly remind ourselves that, it's as simple as, there are people who don't have sensors to be able to sense heat, so they can put their hand on the stove and not realize that they're getting burned, and it could kill them. So from that standpoint, pain really is a necessary gift that we need in order to live and survive. And so it serves a purpose. The other thing that's helped me is realizing that pain is not unique to me. It's universal. It's part of the human condition. There is nobody on the planet that escapes pain and suffering. We all have losses. We all go through things that are unexpected. It's part of the human condition. The third reminder that helps me as I wrestle with this question of the reality of God and the presence of pain is the fact that the one thing God did for us. So when God decided to reconcile his people to himself, I'm sitting there going, he could have just figured out a way to make it possible and stayed nice and safe in heaven. Instead, he said, no, I'm going to become flesh. I'm going to become human. I'm going to put on the human condition. I'm going to leave heaven that is free of pain and absent of any suffering. And I'm going to willingly and intentionally go down, put on flesh so I can be with them. In fact, the Old Testament and New Testament call Jesus the Emmanuel, God with us, because ultimately God knew what we needed more than a God who saved us is we needed a God who would be with us.
Whoa, okay. That was a mic drop. You need to say that again.
This is so important. And this was such a huge, like a turned corner for me. What I needed, what you need more than a God who saves us is a God who will be with us. You and I can endure almost anything as long as we know we're not alone, right? If you think about, right? So think about the days that are the hardest days for you. The hardest days for you are the ones where you feel lonely, right? You feel alone. If somebody can cure the aloneness, you can deal with the hardness of your life, the pain of it, right?
You're preaching.
I can even deal with the pain that I feel every single day, and the fact that I talk funny now and I can't sing like I used to. And all these things are so painful for me. When that pain hurts the most is when I feel alone, like I've been abandoned.
Yes.
Right? And somehow, because God is God, right? He said he recognized that what we needed was not just a resolution to all the things that go wrong. We needed to know he'd be with us no matter what happens.
The way that you are wrapping words around that is speaking directly to my heart, and even things that I've prayed in the last week of, Lord, is the loneliness permanent? Am I broken? Will my heart ever come back together? Is this the human condition, loneliness? And maybe it is. It's very exacerbated, I feel like, in death, that you miss that person whose presence was so daily. But I really resonate with that. And I think that was so artful, even how you articulated that.
Pain is such an interesting thing because pain becomes the loudest voice in the room, right?
Yep.
Pain screams, whatever, whether it's an emotional pain or a spiritual pain or a physical pain, it becomes the loudest voice in the room. It also is a divider, meaning that it creates a sense of otherness. It makes us feel cut off, different, separated from everybody else. So even if we were in a room with 50 other people, pain makes us feel distant, separated, and alone. Right. And so what the real problem is, granted, it would be nice to take some Tylenol and not feel pain, but what we need more than just a temporary fix is an eternal solution. And that really is presence. I mean, it's why you're doing this podcast. It's why you are speaking to those who are listening, because you and they need to know we're not alone. That's the beauty of this. And although we can't fix all the problems, I will never talk normal again until I get to heaven. I will never be able to taste my dinner again until I get to heaven. I mean, there's so many losses. And trust me, I've already sent Jesus my takeout order for what I want to eat once I get there. But that said, the bigger pain in my heart, the bigger pain in my life, the thing that really causes me to ache is I need to know, 1, that there is a God, 2, that he has a plan, and 3, that no matter what happens, he's not going to let me go. And if I know that, if I can know that he is with me, that he sees me, and that he is doing something to reconcile all the things that are going wrong, and that a day is coming where it is going to be so amazing that it's going to actually make me forget all I lost. If I can be guaranteed of that, then I can do anything today.
That is a deeply seated truth that can only come in the authority that you brought that with experience, that you have lived that and that you have breathed that and you own that. Like you brought that with a weight that you have pain cred. You know, that's what I say when I meet other people who I'm like, oh my gosh, you see me. Like you said, pain creates a sense of otherness. Even if you're in a room crowded full of people, it feels like you're set apart from them because of pain. And I don't know if I've ever articulated that in that way before. And I feel seen by you saying that. Thank you so much. Michele, this episode has been incredible and so full. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about what the Lord has taught you through these many experiences, and just the sweetness and the authority. That's a really amazing combo of just I want to say gravitas. I mean, that's kind of a, $5 word for this, but just the empowerment, the impact that the Lord has done through you and what you have allowed him to do in you, in your pain, carries so much power. I just feel power in your words. Like I'm sitting here about to cry, like, yes, this is it. Michele, will you join me on the Hopecast next week and we can pick up and hear more about your story?
I would love that.
Thank you so much. Okay, everybody, you do not want to miss the follow-up part 2 with Michele Cushatt, author of her most recent book, Relentless, where she talks about God's hope and healing in her story, even as it continued. Come and find us next week on the Hopecast.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachaelflick.com. While you're there, you can book Rachael for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will be sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachaelflick.com to book her today. While you're online, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. Also, be sure to click on the social media icons at the top of the page, and you will be directed to Rachael's social media sites. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate if you would subscribe and leave us a review. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.